All right, turned on the recording feature. So thank you very much once again for joining. Today we're going to be covering the User Experience Insight product from Aruba. Now this is actually a rebranding of a product you may have already heard from before. It comes from our acquisition of the Cape Networks company. And so a lot of times in the past these have just been referred to as Cape or Cape Sensors or so on. There was a recent name change to Service Assurance Sensors, and Aruba actually changed that name once again to the User Experience Insight. So you might hear Service Assurance, you might hear Cape, you might hear User Experience Insight. And hopefully it becomes apparent why they made the name change to User Experience Insight, but Aruba wanted to name this as something of what it actually does, to kind of get that thought process rolling of what this product is just by the name. So let's go ahead and get right into it here. This product is all about the user experience insight, and we want to have the best user experiences possible, and so we want to make sure that it's an amazing user experience right at the edge. But why is that important? Well, if you take a look here, we have a quick little almost mathematical diagram, but basically the portions of this are the customer experience or user experience is mission critical for a digital experience or a digital transformation. Now, a digital transformation is all about changing the way that you're interacting with your customers in order to change the game. To come out on top, right? And I have a couple of examples. Think about a place like Levi's Stadium. In the stadium, you can order a beverage with an app. You know when it's available, and then you can, on the same app, use wayfinding to get right over to where that beverage might be. It takes you directly to the vendor. You would pick up your beverage. The app lets you do all the payment and everything, so you don't even have to go up and work at a register or stand in a line. And then this app's going to lead you right back to your seat. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. The experience has changed. In the past, the experience was you went and you stood in a line, you talked to a vendor, you ordered your food or your drinks, and then you waited for it to be prepared, and that's not the best user experience, right? So we're going to get more revenue by making it easier to actually work with and sell to our customers. There's more examples than just Levi Stadium, though. Another one might be, say, Blockbuster to Netflix. Back in the day, you used to go to a video rental store like a Blockbuster or Hollywood Video, and it was a lot like a library, a catalog of DVDs or so on, and you would pick the one that you want, and then you would go ahead and rent that and then bring it back and hopefully avoid a late fee later whenever it was due. Now it's all about streaming. You might have Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or whatever it might be, and you're able to instantly consume the content that you wish to rather than having to go through a less desirable experience. Another example might be how taxis have slowly started to go away, and Uber and Lyft and so on have come in to take their place. And the big difference with these customers, again, is the user experience. We're providing a more positive user experience. Now, all the examples I just gave you would surely fail if that user experience or customer experience wasn't good. If you couldn't get your ride to get where you were going, why would you get an Uber? Taxi's more reliable. If Netflix or Hulu wasn't able to give you the streaming that you're trying to get, you wouldn't use those sites anymore. And the same at Levi Stadium. Why would you use this app to go get your drinks if the wayfinding didn't work correctly, or you weren't able to make a payment for said beverage or food, right? So again, to reiterate here on this sort of equation we have, the customer or user experience really is mission critical for that digital transformation. So if you guys have been with me before, you've heard me talk about this, but we have an increased amount of users, apps, roaming, and we have this shift to software as a service. However, resources in order to make that shift happen have been kind of light. We really haven't scaled the resources to the demand, right? At the same time, you might need new competencies to support something like wireless or SaaS that you might not have in every situation. And SaaS is a really interesting one here, and I'd like to take a moment to kind of think a little bit more about that. Because SaaS is typically something that's not on the inside of your network, right? It's on the outside. You might not have a lot of control over that, so troubleshooting it can be very hard. Think about this example. Somebody wants to open up a service ticket because some application that they're trying to get to isn't working, and what do they usually say in that service ticket? It might be something like, my Wi-Fi isn't working, or Outlook is down. And from a user perspective, that's very frustrating. They expected it to just work. They expect it to go on and get to their application and do their job and, nothing else, right? But from an IT perspective, getting a ticket that says my Outlook is down or my Wi-Fi isn't working really isn't very helpful. So, they're just as frustrated because that could be a broad range of possible explanations, and your troubleshooting is not been narrowed at all. And narrowing it down, getting the information from the user about what they're experiencing so you can start narrowing that down can be a pretty painful process. So this is where we'd like to introduce the Aruba User Experience Insight. There's really two portions of this. One is a purpose-built sensor that can connect via wired or wireless, and then it's going to appear as a user device. It's going to work and give you information as if it were a client. Now the sensors come equipped with a 3G modem, and that's how they connect back to the second portion, which is a cloud user interface. And so they're giving all that information directly to a dashboard that you can look at and get information about how a client is actually experiencing, or the user experience that that client might have, and look at that regardless of if your network is up or if your network is down. And a really cool feature about these, and it's a good time to point this out, and I'll try to point it out multiple times as we move through the presentation here, but these don't have to fit into, say, an Aruba environment only. You don't have to limit yourself. Any wireless environment at all where a digital transformation is important, where you're trying to ensure the fidelity of your Wi-Fi, this is a solution that could really fit in well. Think your Cisco, your Meraki, your Aerohive, your Ruckus. Of course, we want you to use it with Aruba too, but if you have a customer that's doing digital transformation, this is one of the only solutions out there that can really help you get that client-based view. So, don't limit yourself only to Aruba. So let's take a look at everything that kind of comes in the box here, right? It's a Linux client. It's a powerful Linux client, and we have Wi-Fi, Ethernet built right in, so you can test your wired or wireless network with this device. As I mentioned before, it connects back to the cloud via cellular, so you don't have to have a network connection to start getting reporting and immediate results on what you're looking at. There's a 30-day storage here, so you do get some historic reporting on it. There's a lot of different supports for different web browsers, so if you're using Chrome or something of that nature, you have that support right in the client here, and it has a backup power right inside of the unit. That's because it is a Linux client. If power goes out, we don't want anything bad happening inside of the hardware here, so we do have some backup power for some graceful shutdowns. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can use this. It's a tester. You can use it to test certain applications if you need to see what those experiences are like. You can validate, see if you've made changes on the network or made any type of new portion or something. You want to validate that that's working, right? As I mentioned earlier, it's a really good troubleshooting tool to see what could be or not happening, and that's going to help you reduce the amount of support tickets that you might have just by seeing how that end user is actually experiencing. And to top it all off, again, it's an end user experience enhancer. We're going to use this to test, see what the end user is seeing, and make sure that the performance that we expect them to have is actually what they are having. All right, so yeah, just to cover on this, guys, it's a continuous automated testing and troubleshooting. It gives you at-a-glance status and a lot of actionable insights to help you narrow down a problem, focus on what's broken, validate new things or changes in the environment. And as you'll see in the demo, it's also really great here to look at a dashboard and within a second know that everything is okay or something might not be okay. The dashboard's very intuitive and very easy to use. So if you have a person that's taking a look at it or somebody that might be working in your NOC or your operations center, they can always look down and take a look and just at a glance see exactly if everything is as it should be. All right, so this is a really unique product here. I hope that you would agree after hearing a little bit about it, but it's a real Aruba differentiator. You can use this in existing network components, and there's not really any competitors out there that really make a product like this all the way around as Aruba does. It's very flexible and it's robust, like I mentioned, only type of in its product category. This is really powerful. It's going to offer you real-time performance, enables you to have that proactive problem resolution. You could see something on the dashboard and know that you need to start making some changes before you ever get that first support ticket or that first complaint that comes in. You're able to test the full data path from the edge all the way out to, say, somewhere in the cloud where that SaaS is living, and everywhere in the middle. And it also has a triage feature and packet capture, so you can see the history of what's going on as well as analytics, and that's really going to help you with all of your troubleshooting. As I mentioned, as you'll see when we get to the demo portion, it's very straightforward. It's a very, I think, very straightforward value prop. It's going to work with any network. This is, again, really important, including that non-Aruba and any VIX vendor type of situations. I think it's really easy to demo. It's definitely easy to quote. The user interface on it is absolutely very easy to work with. You don't really need any training to get this up and running. It's zero-touch installation here. You don't have to really configure anything to get it up and running. Real simple to get going. And there's really minimal ongoing admin. You don't really have to do much in the management of these sensors. You're just really testing and seeing what's going on in your environment. So I'd like to quickly just show you guys a quick kind of data path and some of the things that you can look at and some of the things you can test. So inside of the firewall, we have SSID visibility, access point association. We can also see a lot of good information about the RF environment, as well as test our captive portal. Moving up the stack here, we're also able to look into the authentication, things like DNS, DHCP. Is it reliable? Is it working fast enough? Was there an issue there? And then outside of the firewall, we can see throughput, latency, jitter, and packet loss. So we can really see if there's something outside of our network that's really causing an issue, and see how well those apps like Office 365, Dropbox, Salesforce, and so on are really working. Now right here we have a very quick kind of look at all the types of tests you can do. Now I just want to point out that this is kind of an incomplete list, but it's just some of the things that you can look at. They're always adding more. There's always more stuff coming with these sensors. So from a Wi-Fi perspective, we're able to scan, associate, packet capture, as well as look at some of the KPIs, things like RSSI and utilization that you normally wouldn't be able to do from a client's perspective without having some kind of on-site type of survey. From a network From the networks portion, we can see things like authentication, DNS, DHCP, ping, iPerf, Telnet, really full suite there that you can look at for your internal network. And then really on this right side here, as you can see, there's quite a few different apps. Now, again, this is just a sample. You can create your own apps with this. It is a Linux box, so there's a lot you can do customizable, where if you have a specific app in your organization or your customer's organization that you're looking to test, you can get that set up pretty easily, or we have a lot of preloaded ones, so we can specifically test a lot of things like Dropbox or Salesforce or Slack, or really, again, a lot. And like I mentioned at the beginning here, they're always adding more. So when you start looking at the library of apps that you might want to test, that list is going to become very extensive. So how is it deployed, and what do you want to look at? Well, basically you want to try to plan for one sensor for every 5 to 10 access point at an end user location. So if it's something like a Starbucks or a McDonald's, you're probably going to be looking at like one per location. If you're looking at an office or any type of environment where you might have more access points out there, every 5 or 10 access points, you're going to want to look at a sensor. Now, you can mount these directly to the ceiling, but it's definitely recommended to mount them a little bit closer to where a user would be. Remember, this is going to be connecting like a user. So if you can get it on a wall or pole or somewhere else that's more at user level, it's definitely going to be a little bit better. You can still mount them to the ceiling if you need to, but when you are mounting them, definitely keep that in mind. Obviously, you can use an AC adapter here, or you can connect these back to a PoE source. So if you have something like a switch, you can use that for power. You are going to need to power this device, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. And then lastly, when you're deploying these, you really just log into the dashboard, and you're pretty much good to go. Not really a lot to get them set up, just plugging them in, making sure they're mounted correctly, and log into the dashboard, and you're good to go. Remember, these don't have to connect to the dashboard through your network. They have that modem, so they're going to connect back to the cloud via the modem, so you can get this up and going right away, even before the rest of your network is up and running. So I just want to take a quick glance here and look at some of the places that you might even put this. Now, don't use this this is the only areas that you can deploy these. This is just a couple of quick examples. So think about a smart digital workplace. And what I mean by that is maybe an office or so on that's moved maybe all the wireless or something of that nature, right? A lot of employees are probably going to be working. They need to be able to have things like voice working correctly. They're probably going to need access to a specific SaaS application, maybe an Office 365 or a Dropbox or whatever collaboration applications that they're using. If that experience isn't working, those guys aren't doing their jobs, and your productivity is going way down, right? So this is a great place to have a CAPE sensor, make sure that everybody is able to do their job. In manufacturing, it's really going to have a lot of different sensors and components all working, right? You might need to test that from a wired or wireless perspective. Is the sensor for this arm working correctly? Is the pump sensor working correctly? Or is it able to send, I should say, is it able to send information to where it's supposed to be sending information and doing that in the right way? So really good troubleshooting applications down in manufacturing. Now in retail and large public venues, again, that digital transformation, think about a Walmart that has an app that they're using, or Home Depot does the same thing where you can lead yourself directly to where a certain product that you're looking for is, do price checking and so on. If that's not working, your experience as a customer is going to be degraded, and that digital transformation isn't really going to be what you wanted it to be. So these CAPE sensors would be able to allow you to do some of that testing and make sure that your customers are actually, in fact, able to experience the experience that you want them to. Lastly, education is another really good example. We're moving in the digital transformation in education every day. Students have iPads, new equipment that they're using, and teachers are also integrating with technology in order to disseminate knowledge in the best way that they can. So again, making sure that all of that is working correctly and that people are able to get to the applications that they want to get to in the classroom is going to be an extremely important part of just the regular education that those students might be getting. So as I mentioned, definitely not everything that you can do with these, but these are some quick examples of places that might have a need, or you might want to be able to put something like in one of these sensors. So how is this priced, right? So it's $790 for the actual sensor itself, and then there's a subscription that you have to pay there for it, and that's per sensor. It's $900 for a 1 year, and then in traditional Aruba, we give a little bit of a discount. For 3 years, you're basically paying as if it were 2 years, and if you go ahead and pay a 5-year upfront, it's as if you paid for 3 years, and it's like you're getting 2 years for free. The subscription itself, you're getting the analytics, troubleshooting, status in the dashboard, and 30 days of live data, and up to 18 months of stored data out in the cloud. Now, you might have a little sticker shock when you look at that. $790 is quite a lot, and those subscriptions are a lot too. But I think the really important thing to remember here with these is that this is a very unique solution, and it's delivering real value. You would definitely want to focus getting discounts on the whole solution, but the rest of the solution, this is definitely something you want to try to sell that value to whenever you can. Remember, the digital transformation that a lot of companies are trying to make their way to is really dependent on the user experience. So that's what we're trying to sell here, is the unique value of being able to test that user experience and ensure that your digital transformation is going to succeed in the way that you want it to. All right, guys, so in summary here, we're going to increase the performance of and experience with the network. You definitely uniquely empower you to focus on the user experience and then solve problems proactively instead of reactively. You're able to improve IT's responsiveness and their efficiency and their credibility, probably their job satisfaction as well, because you're able to do a little bit of that troubleshooting and that narrowing down of what an issue might be when you get my Outlook is not working trouble ticket. Again, great for validating any applications, infrastructure, or configuration changes that were made. You want to make sure that that's not affecting your users. You can validate that. And you're also getting those automatic troubleshooting features, as well as the way to look into the root cause of what might be causing an issue. This is going to minimize your on-site visits and your truck tolls. You don't really need to send somebody out there to see what they're experiencing as a user. You can do that right from the sensor. And again, vendor and infrastructure neutral here, right? We don't have to put this only in Aruba infrastructures. It's really going to go in any wireless environment. And lastly, but not least, simple to use, and you're getting immediate time to value here with almost no ongoing administration cost. All right, guys, that brings me to the end of my portion of the presentation here. With this, I actually do want to hold off questions and kind of give John a little bit of time to perform his demo. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to John Bussart in the BTC. He's going to do a quick demo of what CAPE looks like, and then we'll go ahead and open it for questions, or open it to questions from there.
All right, let me see if I can share my desktop here. Let's see. All right, can everybody see my desktop?
Yes, sir. See it beautiful, loud and, or I should say bright.
Yeah, looks
Great.
good, John.
All right, so here we're logged into the Aruba User Insight Experience up here. Here's the web portal we're kind of logged into. You can see we've got the CAPE naming still there. And what we're getting is a quick overview into what's going on within our environment. This is the one sensor that I have within our Business Transformation Center, our demonstration center. Keep in mind, as I go through this, I can also demonstrate this to your customer if you need to, as well as the whole slew of Aruba products that are out there. But anyways, this is my my sensor, and I got the little smiley face, so I know everything is good on my network. Here's some core services that we have within the environment that need to be up and running for users to be able to get out. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And then again, what am I testing against? I've got some internal services as well as some external services that I'm testing against within my environment. Now, I've limited my scope down. You can pick and choose what wireless networks that you want to look at. You can see I've got only two of them that I'm looking at, so I've actually have a dummy set up. So let me clear all, and we could see this is what you'll see if there's something critical kind of going on in the environment. We can see we have a little bit of issues on the Wi-Fi as well as some authentication issues that are happening. When you see this, you can quickly log into these devices. Everything here is clickable to get more information. For example, if I click over here on this sensor, we can see that I've got a red type of Wi-Fi signal on this guy, and we can look in here and we could see some issues that are happening a little bit, and it's going a little bit slow, but we can see what this is a guest network, and I've got authentication issues kind of going on. I put tap finger in the password, but again, we can kind of get all kinds of great information, the SSIDs that are out there. We might see some channel utilization errors kind of pop up. You can see there was one that was automatically resolved. Because we're a test environment, we've got a lot of access points kind of floating around, and you can see that by the sheer quantity of SSIDs we have floating around in this environment. That's only one page. But at any rate, we could see other things. The network services, some information about the Wi-Fi signal strength and things like that. All right, and we could do that across all these networks. Again, we could see there's some high channel utilization that had been resolved. Again, I also have a wired network set up here. All right, I like to test based on the wireless, and then, is the wireless causing problems, or is there some wired issues as well? But anyways, I have that set up, and I'll show you how that gets set up in a little bit. Again, all this is clickable, so if I want to take a look and see what's going on with my wireless, obviously it highlighted it and gave me a little bit of information, but we could see, what's been going on over time. And again, we could go into some of these different services, again, get some detailed information. All right, so this is kind of a dashboard to tell you, obviously green is good, red is bad, and yellow is something you need to look into. So obviously this is a great dashboard into all those services. All right, so let's go digging a little bit deeper on this. So certainly I can move across. This is this main page that we're looking at here. I can look at here, this little globe. This will tell me where my sensors are in the world. So I have this one little lonely sensor in. We're just on the outskirts of Buffalo, New York, so I'll zoom out. We'll start to see New York here, and we can zoom out a little further, and you see the entire United States. All right. Next over would be a listing of all the sensors across the globe, and I could actually, again, dig into each one of these sensors and get more information about the networks and how they are running. All right, so again, this is a quick dashboard. So how do I configure this? What do I use to configure this? Obviously, over here, I showed you how to limit things down. We certainly have a search criteria over here if you want to search for something specific. Any alarms that are ongoing, you can see we've got some ongoing alarms that are happening. And then right here is where we could configure some things. Again, there's logout, some documentation, what's new with the sensors. But settings is really where you want to go. And this is really how this is configured. And this is the sensor management page, and this would be the one sensor that we have in the environment. And I could certainly edit this and add the different types of wireless networks I want to monitor, as well as the wireless networks, and I'll show you how you set up these networks in a little bit. Okay. we can put these in groups as well. So I don't have any groups set up, but if you have different sensors, maybe at different branch locations within your customer's environments, you could group them together in certain ways, and then you can narrow down your view into that. So again, I could go over here and then select that group and get a dashboard into that individual group if I felt like it. Okay, we'll go back over to the settings. That's a great group management. Some other things. Again, from here we can go to the sensor status page, as well as get more information on the sensor itself. You can see where it is and a little bit more information. All right, so let's talk about how the network's configured. Again, if I go in here and edit, I have some networks set up here, as well as a wireless networks, as well as a wired network. Let me click cancel. So the networks are set up actually right over here. All right. We could see kind of the status on those networks from this page. And we could go in and add a network if I felt like it. Again, it'll go out and scan, see what SSIDs kind of exist, and I can select any one of these. All right, and then give it an alias. It'll develop the SSID. Security, is it open? Is it a passphrase in there? Do you want to put that in there? Or maybe you're using radius or something like that out there. You could certainly plug that in. Right. You can also modify these networks if you felt like it, and this one actually happens to be an open network. You could also configure wired networks. Again, I like to use wired network to be able to test against the wireless speeds and performance. Is this a wired or a wireless issue? It allows you to troubleshoot with that. Again, let's click Add Network, give it an alias. Certainly we could do VLANs and things like that if we wanted to. Right, and then once I have these configured, if you notice these network names, right, then I could add them to the sensor if I wanted to. So again, those would pop under here. All right, so that's how you test individual SSIDs within your organization. Now, what am I going to test against? That'd be under testing. All right, so here I have my one internal web server here that I'm testing it, as well as a whole bunch of external services that are out there. All right. A whole variety of things based on what your customers are interested in, or what's driving their business, or what's mission critical in their environment. Now you notice these little testing are kind of in the middle. This tells you whether it's testing or it's not testing it. I would say this is kind of in the middle because some of the environments I have this enabled. For example, if I change selection here and we'll say we will uncheck all this and we'll say that we're just going to look at what we're testing on this Aruba Instant On SSID. And if we go down here, we can see that we're testing pretty much all the selections that I've created. If I wanted to turn something off, I could certainly turn it off in that fashion. Right. And again, the one network that I'm not actually testing anything on would be this guest network. Right. And that's why when we look at everything, they're kind of in the middle. Right. But I get to select what I want to test and what SSID or what network I want to test it on through that fashion. There's certainly a set of core configurations over here. Now, let's go back over here to test configurations. Let's add a test. Right, this would be something new that I don't have. This is exactly how I created that our web server services. So I have an internal web server. So I went through this process. So are we going to test an external resource? And is it a predefined resource? So obviously we have a whole variety of things that we can test against. Right, they're pre-configured. Okay, so if I want to see how things are working, I don't know, GitHub and things like that. And if I don't see something I like in here, we can always go over to custom, select the type of service. Right, certainly things like a web server, and maybe even a generic setting if you wanted to. So you can select both ports, whether you want to ping it. We could also have internal services. So there's a variety of templates that we could use for internal services. So again, I used a web service for that one web server that was out there. But again, I could change that to a generic and get a little bit more detailed. Right. So that's how I created these services. And again, I picked and choose which of these services are being tested across which SSID. Next, how am I going to kick out an error? What am I reporting against? How long does a service need to be down or latency needs to be incurred? Well, I do that underneath thresholds. Right, and these are all predefined thresholds that are in here, and we've got a variety of categories that we could certainly look at as far as thresholds, whether we're scanning for them or not. Right, internal thresholds as well as external thresholds. And they're editable as well. So if, I don't know, we'll go all the way up to the top if I want to change this. Something a little bit longer. Certainly here I could change the throughput as well as the latency as well as the time delay. And then I can filter these down, obviously, over here by different things. Right. So once I kick off an error, what happens with this error or this warning? You know, where am I going to send that information? Well, that would be done under alerts. Right. I could certainly mute something that was noisy. We always want to mute something that's in our environment if we don't want to hear from that device. The reports. This will generate a report and send it to somebody's email address. I've got it sent to mine, and it is enabled. Webhooks, and if we download a little bit further, we can subscribe to alerts. So if they're after hour during regular hours, and certainly we can customize the hours that they're going through. So let me show you what the report looks like as well as what the alerts look like. I've got some emails that I've saved down here. So this would be, again, I was getting high channel utilization. And this is what the alert looks like when it comes through your email, and you can just click on this and view in the dashboard and dig into it a little bit deeper. So that's how an alert shows up inside your email box. Let's look at how the reports show up in your email box. So here we can see the report. And this is a splash. I'll just give you a real quick summary of what's kind of going on in each one of the networks. Okay. But here is a PDF file of the detailed report. So let's open up that guy. You can see we got 100% sad face, and I'll show you where that kind of comes from. If we scroll down, we can look at the different wireless networks, and of course, right on top, we are actually looking at our Aruba Instant On network, which has got 100% smiley face. If I go down a little bit further, I could see where there might have been any issues. Looks like there was a little bit of DNS lookup time issues on my network. Right. Scroll down a little bit further. I can tell when those issues happen. So it looks like they happened on Saturday in this time frame. But again, I'll go across all the SSIDs. So this is that guest network that I told you had have a bad password in. So 100% bad experience down here. And we could see some other channel utilization problems and things like that, as well as when these errors happened. We'll go even further to my Aruba EDU staff network. You can see 100% satisfaction in this environment, but we can see there's some things kind of happened. We had some DNS lookup problems, some DHCP response time, as well as channel utilization issues. And if I scroll down, we can see when these happened through the week. It looks like some of it happened earlier in the week when I took this report. And here's my wired network. So this is nice. This is always why I like to tell I have a wired network. You can see my DHC response time, my DNS lookup time are a little slow even on the wired network. So I probably have to go look into my DNS server and DHCP server and make sure I have enough resources allocated for that. Go all the way down, we can see when that happened as well. So that's the report, and that's what you'll receive from this on an ongoing basis. But again, the dashboard is really where you go to kind of get all kinds of detailed information, right? And that would be over here. And again, we could see we have a little bit of a Wi-Fi congestion kind of going on, as well as some authentication issues happening here. The only other things inside the settings page was this is my company information. Me and Josh are kind of set up in here, and there's some general information over here. Right. And then finally, my account information. All right, so that is my quick demonstration of this interface. I'll pass it back on over to Josh to kind of wrap things up for you.
All right, thanks, John. I'll go ahead and take that here then. All right, everybody, we actually are a little bit out of time, but I do want to open this up for some questions here. Did anybody have any questions, something that they would like to ask, and we can go ahead and answer those for you right now?
Right, so this is kind of correct.
Well, Brandon, do you want to unmute everybody so they can ask those questions?
Yeah, let me do that.
Enterprise with regard to supported devices.
I might be able to do that too.
That's a data center front. And that's a security front. Yeah, so
Obviously, you could always put something in the chat window if it's a quick question.
they're treating the DNA sensors
I seem to be having an issue with unmuting everyone.
When looking at the other product families, like Nexus within a data center design or
Let's take a look in the questions section.
security design,
I don't see any questions in there. Oh, here we go. Are there any discounts on the subscription if you add more sensors? I don't believe that there is one that is just inbound to the actual product itself, but obviously as you go up in the amount of cost, if you can deal reg them, you're going to be able to get discounts in that way. There's also several promotions that we have as well as our own internal funds to be able to help with that as much as possible. So we'll be able to take those on a case-by-case basis. If you are, interested in these, we'll go ahead and do what we can and try to get that price as low as possible. Does that answer your question there, Chris? Perfect. Good question. Do we have any other questions out here?
yeah. Let me just take a look through my notes. I just sent you the export notes to go to the email.
Yes. Put that back over here. All right, guys. Well, I will go ahead and let everybody here go. Thanks for coming down and listening to our presentation today. If you do have some additional questions later on, please reach out to the team. That's why we're here. I'll go ahead and get this video uploaded up to YouTube. And if you or some of your colleagues would like to give it another watch or learn a little bit more or just have it in your back pocket, that's where it's going to be. Thanks again for showing up and have a. Oh, never mind. I have one more question here. So it is already applicable for switch side monitoring. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris. Chris's question here is, could this product at any time be applicable for switch side monitoring? And it is applicable for switch side monitoring, but remember, this is from the user experiences side. So if you want to see monitoring of what the actual switch is having, but not from a user's perspective, then you're going to want to look at another product. Something maybe like Aruba Central if you're using switches with Central, or maybe something like Airwave if you're not using something like Central. But you're going to want to go with a monitoring tool that's on the network side if you just want to see what your network is doing. And then this tool is always going to be from a user side. Oh, okay. So Chris wants to know, he meant like the sensor was acting like a client that's hardwired. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. That's when we were doing the demo, when John was showing connecting in through a VLAN and so on, you would be able to configure it in, on the client side. I'm sorry, on the sensor side, and that's the information that you're looking at. You can go ahead and see or set up what service you want to hit on the internal side, but that's what you would be doing if you're doing it hardwired. And yes, you could definitely test what the client would be experiencing as if it were hardwired. Does that answer your question, Chris?
Okay, I think I was actually able to successfully unmute everyone participating on this webinar. So give it one more last call for any questions from anybody today.
So it looks like Jerry's asking if this is based on SNMP data, and I would say that it won't use SNMP to be on the outside of that. Basically, what this CAPE sensor is doing is acting like a client, and it's testing these resources, whether they're internal or external, over and over again. So it doesn't rely on SNMP at all. Anything else from anybody? Those are good questions, all these.
All right then.
I think we might be good.
I think that would be it then. All right, guys. Again, thanks for coming by. If you have another question later on, again, don't hesitate to throw that out at us, and we'll get it answered for you. And again, thanks for coming by, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.